And we're rolling. Yes, people, what's going on? It's your boy Terrence Kojo Adu. Welcome to the Infinite Mind channel. And today we got a very special guest, Nana Agyemang. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. Hi, everybody. My name is Nana Agyemang. I'm a proposition delivery manager. At Barclays Bank. It's a fancy title, which and simply means I'm a project manager. So I oversee projects and propositions to support entrepreneurs from ideation, when they have an idea, to start up a business, all the way through starting up, all the way through to scaling. So in a nutshell, my work streams are there to make sure that entrepreneurs of today and of the future have all of the growth tools that they need to succeed in business.
Okay. So is that so sourcing finance? Do they give business plans, etc.? How to get investments and
Yeah, in a nutshell. So basically, I would basically simplify my role and say I'm a connector within the ecosystem. So my job is to basically support people in getting access to investment, access to networks, access to other founders within their space, access to co-working spaces as well. Essentially making sure that I utilize my network to give entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, ethnic minorities, female founders, for example, the opportunities that they need to equal the playing field.
okay. So what brought you to where you are today? Like, what's been your journey?
Interesting. So I joined the bank as, like, even before I joined the bank, I actually left university with an English lit degree. So I studied English lit because of the fact that I fell in love with the subject quite early in my time in secondary school. I liked the fact that with English, essentially there was no black and white answer. There was always an opportunity to frame your thinking aligned to a particular direction, and essentially be able to be a lot more flexible with your approach to that subject, and the answers I would provide in test exams, etc. I passed with an English lit degree in Anglia Ruskin University, did a number of different jobs that were just part-time jobs here and there to get a little bit of money in. And then I actually stumbled across a cashiering position within the bank, which I applied for, and was fortunate enough to start within the flagship branch that used to be Piccadilly Circus in the middle of central London, right underneath the lights there. While I was there, I then got a role about a year and a half later as a personal banker, where I was doing a lot more of a sales orientated role. I became a small business manager, a business relationship manager, did some time in employee communications as well as a comms business partner, which was a real highlight for me in my career. And then I went on to become a marketing strategist before my current role. So I've been in about 6 or 7 different roles during my time there, and have really just essentially made it my target to at least every year and a half at a maximum try and look for that next challenge and new opportunity.
Okay. So what do you think are the keys to rising within an organization? Like, what skill sets and mindsets and actual activities do you have to do? Do you have to be good at negotiating your salary? Do you have to be on point in terms of being a team player and putting yourself out there? Like, what skills and mindsets and actual activity do you need to rise within a corporate organization such as Barclays, which is obviously a giant?
Yeah. So the main thing I'll say, which is both a skill and a mindset thing, and I think is number one for me, is consistency. You need to demonstrate consistency in everything that you do within a corporate organization. It could be here at Barclays, it could be in any one of the other banks, it could be in an auditing firm like KPMG, it could be in an advisory firm like EY. You need to demonstrate consistency. Consistency in that 7-hour period or 8-hour period or however long you turn up to work, you're going to give your utmost and literally try to be better than you were the day before. Because what that does is that, regardless of whether you're having a good day, a bad day, if you've had customers angry at you, if you've had customers pleased and leaving good feedback, it shows your hiring manager, and essentially people that are even above your line manager, your hiring and your line manager, sorry, and shows people that are even one level above your management, that you are somebody that shows up consistently. That's the main thing that people want to see, consistency. Now, when you join as a junior colleague, let's say you might join as a graduate or you might come in at entry level, you're expected to be, and again, this is, I'm sure, the same for many corporates, you're expected to be reactive. That means if I was somebody's line manager and I say, we have a problem with X, Y, Z, I expect you to listen to what I've said and go resolve it following instructions that I've given you. When you then start to get a bit more senior, you're expected to be a lot more proactive in your approach. So that means that I don't even necessarily need to point something out to you. You should be able to use your scruples, identify something needs fixing, and go and resolve it. When you get a level above that, then you're talking about ownership. So ownership of tasks is a bit more than being proactive in that. It's like, yeah, you might identify, oh, hi, Mr. or Mrs. X, whoever your manager is, I've noticed there's an issue with this, and I'm doing X, Y, Z work to fix it. Can you help me along the way? That's an element of proactivity. Whereas ownership is more owning things from the start to the finish, like the end-to-end delivery of things. That's more when you get to the sort of middle management here, and I'll say anything above that is leadership. But then on his various different and there's various different elements. But I would say those points that I mentioned earlier, in terms of negotiating and one thing I will say before I even mention negotiating your salary, if you want extraordinary results, you need to put in extraordinary work. Because I go to a lot of panel events and I meet a lot of young people that want to get into financial services. Quite a few want to get into the investment bank. But in the investment banking sector of the company, I've got colleagues that will work from 9 a.m. and finish at 8 p.m. And you're not going to meet a lot of people that are willing to give up that much of their day to work. Like, some of my colleagues will stay in the office and order delivery at 9 p.m. and they're still working, whereas people are at home watching their favorite soap opera or in Netflix getting ready for bed. And they get into that kind of position because they've got that extraordinary work ethic. So when it then comes time for promotions, hiring managers are looking at them like, I know that I can trust X, Y, Z with this because they're going to get the task done. And I meet a lot of people and I have to kind of drill it into people that you can't have an average work ethic. Just, I want to do my 9 to 5 job, but as soon as 5 o'clock hits, I'm out the door. And I'm not going to worry about anything work related until the following morning. You need to have that, you need to really take ownership of your work. And then just finally, sorry, I know it's a long-winded answer. I just want to make sure I get the detail in there. With negotiating salaries, you got things like LinkedIn jobs, you got Indeed, you got Glassdoor. The best way to negotiate your salary is to go on those websites and platforms and look at what the requirements are for someone in your role, and then identify what, in addition to that, your organization wants you to do on top of the day-to-day requirements. And if you can then justify the fact that the market average with the base requirements is at a certain amount, come back with the additional requirements that they want you to have to essentially request that additional increment. You can then also do things like, if you worked professionally before in another firm, bring the fact that you're going to come with that added experience, of course, add in the travel and the rest of it as well. But then if you utilize LinkedIn well, LinkedIn is now where a lot of recruiters are going proactively to search for candidates. If you've got a good presence on LinkedIn, it helps a lot because you can then utilize your network to help amplify that company's brand, and you bringing in new talent, a positive and public image of that organization all helps as well.
Wow. Okay. So being proactive and also doing your research on the market is a very important thing to do. So you're quantifying and making your value to the firm tangible.
100%. 100%.
Right. So I obviously I've known you quite a while now, but and I've seen you win many awards. So what's been your most standout achievement today?
Do you know what? My biggest standout achievement, honestly, was in Barclays. We hosted a Young Black and in Finance event for like young professionals, either in early stages of other firms or individuals that had just recently come out of education, were struggling to get jobs, maybe had the degrees, but we're in that kind of rock and a hard place situation where they've got the qualification but they don't have the experience, or they might have had the experience but don't have qualifications to get into the different areas that they wanted to get into. So I led a team of colleagues to run an event which was titled Young Black and in Finance, and the bank were great. We worked with various different teams, like the marketing team, some of our teams behind talent acquisition, to really market the event effectively. We used like digital screens, ATMs, advertised it across the entire region of London, and we got about 200 people, 200 young people into our head office. It was beautiful because you had even latecomers stood at the back, still attentively listening. But we had over 200 people from like different boroughs. So I'm talking Hackney, Islington, Camden, Tower Hamlets, Newham. We had people from like different universities like Queen Mary, Anglia Ruskin, York St John, University of East London, and some colleges as well. Even some parents and guardians with their children. And I got a panel of senior MDs and directors to speak to them about career paths, because a lot of people have this misconception that when you get to like a vice president or a director or an MD position, you just kind of waltz into that position and you're super smart and you get in there from the first application. When in actuality, I work with MDs that have had to do 15, 16 applications to get their first successful one. And so it was just to kind of dispel that myth of essentially that the corporate world is easy for everybody to navigate. And it gave those 200 or so young people, an opportunity to literally get to grips with the day-to-day of essentially what those individuals had to go through to get their roles. And it ended up putting us in a position where we were able to hire about 6 or 7 people off the back of that exercise as well.
Okay, wow. So you actually were able to bring people in and then also take them, obviously deliver value to them and actually give them roles that they could actually use and build their career and CVs.
Yeah, exactly. Because the bank is very big on the DE&I culture within society, and that goes from everything from including ethnic minorities to the gender pillar to sexual orientation, disability status, age as well. We have a variety of different programs. So like the bank's got a program called the Discovery Program, which basically is there to support people in the first year of university, for example, from ethnic minority backgrounds and that are also of the female gender, by helping them get into typically male-dominated roles, or parts of the bank that you wouldn't typically see people from ethnic minorities in. And that what that does is that it gives people from the first year of uni an opportunity to come and do an insight day at the bank, where they spend one day hearing from different leaders across different parts of the organization. And then they also get an opportunity to have an interview the following day, a very high level values based interview about their personality and skills. Those that impress the most get to then come back a year later and do a 10-week internship with the bank. And if they're successful, majority of them, 80% of the time, I've been told, according to data, will then be able to do a graduate scheme where they're able to kind of have first dibs at applying for those graduate roles with that experience that they've got. And so the bank really tries its best to remove barriers for entry into the organization. And what I really liked about that opportunity was that with the Young Black and in Finance event was that I got to make real positive change in front to the lives of real people that are from like communities similar to what I've grown up in. I met, the mothers of some now colleagues that were at the time prospects, so being able to really make that positive difference and help, change the financial trajectory potentially of some families that will go on with those prospects, hopefully progressing within the company, was a real game changer for me.
Wow. Okay. And I know you've actually helped get a lot of people roles. I think the number you mentioned was around 70. So obviously that is a lot of people to help. And a lot of you're putting bread in a lot of people's pockets, So if you were 18, just leaving college, just leaving sixth form, what path would you suggest that people take in terms of going to uni or getting a trade, or going straight into the working world? Like, what advice would you give in 2024 now going into 2025?
It's an interesting one because I work with a lot of universities, so I am a big fan of like the support that universities can provide, but then I'm also not ignorant to the fact that university life is highly expensive and not everybody can afford to fork out the money for accommodation separate to, like, not every parent can pay their own existing bills and then support their children through university. And you need to have an additional income, really and truly, if you're going to survive university, if that's the children working themselves. As a personal preference, even though I went to university more so because my parents from a Ghanaian background just expected it as automatic rites of passage, I would have gone, and I would recommend apprenticeships. I feel like apprenticeships are a real good way to get yourself really embedded into an organization's culture early on, and then you learn qualifications that are equivalent to a university degree. So here in the bank, we offer lower and higher apprenticeship schemes. The higher apprenticeship schemes are great because you can, let's say, for example, study internal, get a career an internal audit, or you might be interested in compliance or business banking, for example, and you can get a role within that particular area of the business and study towards a qualification that's equivalent to a degree, but that's paid for by the organization. So you have debt-free study while you work. Now, of course, the caveat to that is you're going to be extremely busy, but I mentioned earlier about having a extraordinary work ethic in order to get extraordinary results, because at the end of an apprentice you get experience in an organization and the networks that comes with that. You get debt-free study as well, that essentially you're able to get a qualification through. And it's not just a standard degree qualification. You'll study qualifications related to the area of expertise that you're operating in. So if you are working in compliance, the bank will pay for you to study a compliance-related qualification. Audit the same, business banking, corporate banking, wherever you choose to go into. So by the end of it, you have the qualification to essentially show that you're a qualified professional, and you've got the experience, and you're already in a firm if you're successful at doing that. If you're not successful at an apprenticeship, because although they are relatively new, they are very competitive, I would also recommend the traditional route of coming in the entry level and never discount that, whether that be through the branches, whether that's through telephony, data entry, because when you're at the foundation of the organization, you really learn the tenets of what holds the company together, and senior leaders from people who I've interacted with really appreciate and respect that.
Wow. Okay, so apprenticeships, entry level, and I guess obviously with uni, from my experience, it's most valuable to people that are going to do a career in the field that they're getting the degree in. So what's your thoughts on degrees in terms of, because there are certain graduate schemes that require you to have a degree and a 2-1, etc., especially at like the Big Four and stuff like that. So what's your thoughts on utilizing a degree?
Yeah, I would say I think degrees are still really important, but I feel like those are, if you have a specified business area that you want to move into where you feel like you're unwavering, like your attention to that's going to be unwavering, and you're really going to hone in and go for that specific qualification, I would say yes, 110%. A degree is the way to go. If you want to become, if you want to work in our legal function, for example, where essentially you're an in-house lawyer for the bank, of course, 110%, you're going to need a degree qualification for that. If you're at a stage in your life, however, where you're a bit unsure and you might have a 60% inclination into that, but want to also maybe go into something more generic, I would say you don't necessarily need a degree for that from my personal experience. But definitely, if you are a young person at this moment in time, or even somebody that's considering a career change, and you know exactly what you want to do, and you have it in your mind, the unwavering consistency to deliver on that, I would 110% say yes, go for that, and make sure that you get your degree qualification. But what with the acknowledgement of socioeconomic inclusion as well, a lot of these firms, including where I work at the minute, the bank's looking to do a lot more to find alternative ways for people to essentially get into positions that would have typically required a degree qualification as a black and white. So now, even if for example you work as you work your way up into senior management positions, I've seen situations where colleagues have joined as a junior colleague straight out of school with no higher education and qualifications, but have worked up the ranks up the years and essentially got into positions where if they had come in external, they would have needed that degree qualification. But because they've essentially had the experience of the school of life, if you will, and done the roles they already know all of the knowledge. So there's different ways you can make it within an organization. The final thing I'll say on that is sometimes you might have to take a step back to take a step forward. So you might be a teacher, maybe for example, earning 45k, but have to come in on a 30k job to get where you want to get to if
Right.
you're really serious about what you want to do. Because it's not always easy to come in from a totally different angle into a new career field. If I wanted to go into working in schools, I can't just say I'm working at a certain salary within the financial services sector and become a head teacher of a school. I need to get the foundations right, and that's sometimes sacrifices that have to be made.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So sometimes you got to take a step back to take two forward.
Agreed.
Yeah. And maybe the last one on this area of work specifically, a lot of people complain of having bad managers sometimes. So what would you say, how should somebody deal with a bad manager, and how can bad managers become better?
Cool. I'll tackle the last part first. And bad managers becoming better. I feel like you should lead your team for the development of your people rather than being target orientated. What I mean by that is of course, as a line manager, you're going to have your superiors and people that are on your case to make sure that your team delivers their KPIs, the key performance indicators. But I feel if you train your staff to be the best versions of themselves in their roles, and they feel like they have your unwavering support to be the best that they can be, they're going to be happy staff and they're going to work for you. Like I'll take it to the analogy of football. If you have a team where the manager knows which players need to have the hand around the shoulder, which players need to be spoken to harshly, which players need the mind games played with them, they always are able to deliver effectively because they fight for the manager. They'll run to the death for that manager on the football field. It's a similar analogy when you're dealing with colleagues in a financial services or corporate environment. If you know the strengths of your colleagues, and you have a team where maybe somebody's role might incorporate a bit of financial analysis, but another person's role might incorporate some communications, and you know that they have skills in the opposite areas, you can give those colleagues an opportunity to interchange work, to find ways of supporting each other in their strong areas, or maybe even developing each other in the areas that they're each weak in to help improve each other. You can do a lot more. A lot of leaders can do a lot more in terms of just having that informal time with colleagues, really understanding the things under the hood of what their colleagues and the people are reporting into them are really going through in their personal lives, making sure that those colleagues feel supported to take the necessary time to support parents, support their families and children, take that time off maybe for a newborn, etc. And in terms of the other point, which was essentially how to deal with a bad manager, I would say it's important to be direct. Like when I be direct but polite. So when I speak to colleagues, within my organization, for example, that might be a bit more junior than me, I feel like sometimes when people want to approach me for development, they're not always direct with what they want. So what I mean by that is sometimes it can be a bit fluffy in the sense that you'll meet somebody that wants to tell you their whole life story and all the details about essentially what's got them to where they are, and they might not necessarily know exactly what they want to do, but they look to you to kind of tell them where they should be going. Whereas if you're going to be in somebody's team reporting onto them, you should have your goal of 3 years I want to be here, 5 years I want to be in this position, or have a couple of options at least. And also you should have your understanding of you should have an understanding of the role. Never chase a corporate grade. So don't try and say to yourself, I want to be an assistant vice president, a vice president in X amount of time, and regardless of what the role is, I'm just going to go for it. You need to pace yourself and know exactly why you are making decisions. In terms of having a manager, maybe let's say doesn't support you, for example, get yourself a sponsor. A sponsor is different from a mentor. So a sponsor is typically somebody that's going to be one level above your line manager, somebody that's maybe your manager's manager, or maybe even a level above that, you're like 2 times above your manager, who's basically going to see the hard work that you're doing and be that vocal voice, that voice that's being vocal and waxing lyrical about you in rooms that you're not going to be in. That's rooms that's going to be arranging consistency for your salary for the next year, or going to be arranging your end of year performance rating. Because what that allows you to do is that it helps you get your name around, so people know of you before they even meet you or encounter you. It's highly important to have a sponsor, whereas everybody knows a mentor. A mentor is somebody that helps to develop you. Make sure if you are struggling with your relationship with your line manager, get a mentor, because a mentor will be somebody else in that organization around your line manager's grade that can essentially have those difficult conversations for you if you need it, or tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, I think X, Y, and Z is having this issue with you because of A, B, and C, or, you know, and be that kind of representation for you in those kind of forums. If you're confident enough to do it without a mentor, 100% have that conversation with your line manager. Sometimes I find if it's a very difficult conversation, have it in written and recorded format. Send a team's message, email. Just make sure that you outline any grievances that you have, but do it in a respectable and form and empathetic and thoughtful way, because with a large organization, arrangements can be made. Your line manager could change. Your director might be able to put you in a different part of the organization. Conflict is something that does happen. We're all human beings at the end of the day, but it's in the best interest to resolve conflicts positively. You never want to burn any bridges, and you also I always say this to people, want to analyze yourself in a situation. That's something I do for myself. I always analyze myself and think, have I done something that could have put this situation in a bad light? Is there more that I could be doing? And if I feel that there's more that I could be doing as an individual, I will 100% make sure that I make those improvements, and make sure that somebody else, like a mentor or a sponsor, is aware of that. So if there's any fires or flames further down the line, I can at least evidence to someone as a witness that I've taken the necessary steps. What you don't want to do is start fighting fire with fire and trying to, be combative, because at the end of the day, that only then creates a negative reputation for yourself. People can see where you might be in a difficult situation with somebody that may not even necessarily be the best match for you, but at least you're making that effort,
Right, 100%, 100%. And in terms of, I guess, maybe books, courses, podcast speakers, what would you advise people that are looking to change job or get a new role to be reading or looking at?
Yeah, so one of the more generalist books that I read is The Daily Stoic by a gentleman called Ryan Holiday. It's got quotes from ancient leaders, all the way from the Marcus Aurelius's, the Mansa Musas of the world, all the way to some more recent presidents and prime ministers. And it's basically a book around having a stoic mentality, a minimalist mentality, doing a lot with the least resources possible. That's a good book I recommend to anybody that I interact with. I actually bought one of my old line managers that book, and he keeps messaging me about it every once in a while. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. Now, if you want to get into financial services, depending on the route that you want to go, there's a lot of qualifications that you might want to start looking into. Let's say you want to become a business advisor. There's a qualification known as the London Institute of Banking and Finance, or Finance and Banking, LIBF, London Institute of Banking and Finance. And that's basically a qualification that gives you the expertise that you need in regards to being able to lend accreditably. If you want to become a mortgage advisor or get into that world, there's a CMAP qualification. In our wealth advisory world, there's for wealth and private bank and that kind of side of the business, you've got the CFA qualification. So all of those are listed typically on our websites, especially when you're looking for roles in various different elements of the bank. I'd encourage you to learn about the Financial Conduct Authority, which is essentially the financial body that overlooks all of the financial institutions. Learn about the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, how people in the UK are covered for their money. Do that background research so that if you're, regardless of what area of the company you're looking to get into, you've at least got that foundational knowledge that's going to help carry you through.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Qualifications do give obviously credibility to your knowledge, and if you're looking for a new role, it's good to kind of understand the job specs that you're going for, and looking at what are the qualifications that you need, what are the skills that you need, and being able to tick those off when you write your CV.
100%. 110%. And it shows an element of proactivity. Even when you're applying for a role, don't just do the typical thing of applying with a CV and just a cover letter that's generic. Make sure that you tailor that cover letter specifically to the role that you're applying for. Hiring managers can tell if you've got an AI to write your cover letter, or if you've literally just had a very generic, I want to work for a renowned and global institution with XYZ amount of history. People can tell when you just chopped and changed things a bit. It's important to be very specific. And one thing I always recommend to people is create a business plan, a 30, 60, 90-day business plan. When I say business plan, it might sound spooky. It might sound like a lot of work. It could literally just be a one-pager or a PowerPoint slide split into 30, 60, 90 days, a 3-month plan, 90 days of 30 days, how I'm going to embed myself. 30 days how I'm going to start off within the firm. 60 days how I'm going to embed myself and get used to the company culture. 90 days how I'm going to look at new implementation and new things that can be developed. So your 30 days might just be, meet my stakeholders, get a body. Your 60 days might be take on my first independent case or process or understand how processes for clients and customers work. 90 days might be identify flaws in existing processes, look at new ways that different teams within the organization can interface into each other. Get that in front of a hiring manager before you even have the conversation. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect or 100% right, but it shows an element of proactivity and makes you memorable. Because not every applicant is going to do that unless everybody that watches this video then suddenly just creates one. But you want to make yourself different. You want to be unorthodox. The way that I was actually successful in getting one of my roles is I had a coffee chat before the interview with a hiring manager for my employee comms role. I actually did a writing exercise before I got that job, but as a bit of extracurricular work, not extracurricular work, but an extra step. I sent my university dissertation to that hiring manager to prove that I could speak, I could prove I could write and command the English language effectively. Now, that was a bit of a bold move. It was super unorthodox and not everyone would do that, but I did that to make sure that I was memorable and different. And that is actually what then ended me at that position.
Yeah. I think standing out is very important because the market is very competitive and you've got a lot of other people going for the same roles you're going for. So doing things that show your uniqueness and what makes you different is very important.
100%. 110%.
Well, I'm conscious of time, so I'm gonna skip to the next section, which is a bit more out there. So, if you could speak to any historical figure from the past or even present, who would you speak to and why? So you can have a
that's a good question. There's two. I would actually. I love that question. If I could speak to a historical figure, I would speak to, let's say, okay, I'll give you two. If I could speak to somebody in existence now, I would love to have a conversation with Denzel Washington, because I watch a lot of his interviews apart from his films. Of course, he's an excellent actor, but I love his temperament. He's a very well-tempered individual, very professional in how he carries himself. And in the industry that's Hollywood, where there seems to be a lot of celebrity slip-ups and debacles and all sorts of crazy stories that come out of there, he seems to be very level-headed and keep himself out of that. And I would love to just kind of understand from him how he manages his day-to-day interactions with people, how he maintains his respect within that industry. So I would say Denzel for a modern figure. If I was to say an ancient figure, I would have to say it would be between, I know I've mentioned them previously, either Mansa Musa, just for his command over wealth and an ancient empire, which was ancient Mali at the time, and essentially how he maintained that wealth over such a long period of time. And also, alternatively, Marcus Aurelius, one of the Roman empires during the more blissful times in Rome, because he was a philosopher and a warrior king as well. But he had a very well-tempered manner about himself, where he was a lover of philosophy and always related everything back to the ancient philosophy that he studied. He was very well studied, very well read as well. And even to this day, I read a lot of his meditations in the Daily Stoic that helped me along my day-to-day, especially during the difficult times. So I speak to him more on how to maintain that leadership type of mentality even in difficult circumstances.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So Marcus Aurelius, Denzel, those are very maybe seemingly opposites, but actually very similar in terms of their philosophies and way they handle life. You know, keeping it simple.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the consistency, you know. Yeah.
Right. Right. And I guess another left field topic is obviously dating. So there's the idea that you should just focus on your career, lock in, get focused on your career, go to the gym, stack your cash.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on focusing on yourself as a man versus putting yourself out there in the dating field? Like, do you feel a woman can actually push you to be greater, or you should be focused on being great yourself first?
I feel with that, it depends on your situation. Like I feel if you have a good partner, somebody that's going to be there and support you, you can honestly get a real energy boost from that situation. If you've got somebody good by your side that's going to help motivate you and help push you and help to drive you, even sometimes tell you when you're wrong. None of us as human beings like to be told when we're wrong, but sometimes you need somebody that's going to be in your corner to not allow you to be wrong and strong. But at the same time, I also feel like if you're in a situation where you haven't got a partner that's going to be supportive and understanding of the fact that sometimes you're going to need longer periods of time to literally just be on your own, have that time for study, do that extra work outside of hours. Do you remember I mentioned about the delivery orders at 8 p.m.? I mean, don't understand. Sometimes I don't want to be doing that kind of half graft all the time, but sometimes you're going to need to put that in there, and you're going to need somebody that by your side that's going to really appreciate and understand that you're building for the future. And they also need to be on their own mission, building and making themselves the best version of themselves so you can collectively come together and have a strong unit. The best relationships I've seen is two people working on themselves for each other. You know, there's that saying of I'm gonna work hard for me and on me for you, and I want you to work hard on you for me. And I feel when couples come together with that type of mentality, it can really work well. Where it goes wrong is where people depend on each other for happiness, because naturally, as human beings, we all have an element of selfishness. You're always going to want to make sure that home base is looked after before you start worrying about everything else. And it's important to make sure that you have a partner that's in that mentality of, yeah, she's in it for me, but doing the best for herself, and vice versa for you also. And I believe as long as you both have that understanding and are mature enough to get that, you're going to be fine. What you also need to do, though, is make sure that you go through trials and tribulations together, because sometimes things get tough in the corporate world. You might go through a redundancy. You might have a period where, you're just kind of straddling the lines in a particular role that might not be bringing you the level of income that you need or want. And you need to have somebody that's going to be understanding when you have those down moments, or you have those moments of self-doubt, that imposter syndrome, because financial strain is one, you can look up the data, as one of the main causes for relationship breakdown. And also time spent at work. Whereas, again, although we're in a digital age now, and a lot of people use apps, a lot of people find their life partners through work also. So don't shut that down. If you feel like that person is potentially worth it, you just need to try and test the situation, I'll say.
Okay. So the having time spent together, and obviously going through the journey of life and the trials and the tribulations, adds to the strength of the relationship, and allows them to obviously feed into you more, and you can feed into them through their trials and tribulations.
110%. Beautifully summarized everything I said there. Yeah, agreed.
Cool. And I guess lastly, so for people that may have, maybe they've had kind of dead end jobs, or, they're in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe, or even mid 30s, and they just don't know what to do with their career, what path to go down. What would you suggest they do?
I would suggest, you upskill first and foremost on. So let's say, for example, you want to get into financial services and you have no idea exactly what you want to get into. Number one thing I would actually recommend, and a lot of people think apprenticeships are just for young people. I've seen people in their mid-40s go for apprenticeships. Look at apprenticeships. If you're in a position where you feel like your job is at a dead end and you don't know where to go. If financially you can support yourself on that salary initially, look at one of the apprenticeships that we offer on or another organization, because apprenticeships, even as an adult, give you an opportunity to come into a firm and learn the nooks and crannies from the foundation. And then it gives you the opportunity then to step into a promotion in a role that you're more tailored and suited for. Sometimes you might have to come into an organization wanting to be an events manager, but start off on the till, because it's not always necessarily easy to go into the firm, the role that you want to automatically without the relevant experience. Because at the end of the day, companies want people that are going to be, they don't essentially, they want people that are going to be able to not necessarily just hit the ground running, but operate at optimum speed within a role with a limited amount of time to train them and get them up to speed. So look at apprenticeships as the first thing. The second thing I would say is, if you feel like you're in a dead-end job, you need to identify skills that you have already and relate them to roles that you feel you could step into. So let's say, for example, and again, teachers are amazing. So this is not like, this is just giving an example. Let's say you work in a job where you are a teaching assistant, for example, and you feel you just can't really see yourself being a full-time teacher. Well, within financial services organizations and any corporate, it could be TFL, it could be Google, a tech company, they're going to have colleagues in trainer roles that are there to teach and coach colleagues internally. So you could take those skills that you have for teaching students and identify a training role in an organization you want to get into, and do that, and take those skills that you have as a teacher and apply them to that particular role. You might be a nurse and maybe you're tired of the work that you're doing. Well, guess what? You might be able to get an occupational health role in a corporate firm and use those skills you've gained as a nurse to then get you through the door. And once you're in that company, look for that. Or you might work in construction. Well, guess what? Corporate organizations are always building new offices. You can look for a role that gives you an opportunity to get into the venue management for that company, and then use that segue to get in. So I would say, think hard and fast about core skills that you have, because we're all excellent in some shape or fashion. You might be a great chef. You might be into the arts. You might be into medicine. Think about the core skills that you have and think about how that relates or has a synergy with an element of the financial services industry, and apply for that role first. Your long-term goal might be you want to become a mainstay in the citizenship team, or you might want to work in the DE&I element of the firm. Sometimes you're going to have to play the long game by finding a role that aligns with your current skill set. But then typically with most corporate organizations, 6 months to 1 year in a particular role, you're fine to apply for roles in other parts of the organization. So having that delayed gratification. And the final thing I will say is, you need to study. You can't, like, studying. When I left uni, I thought it was once and done. I thought, I've gone to uni, I've got my qualification, no more studying. I'm never going to pick up a textbook again. Until I realized I had to pick up textbooks and become a better lender in business banking, or I had to, if I wanted to get into wealth, I needed to learn their equivalent of the relevant qualification. You consistently need to be learning, whether you want to be learning coding languages like Python and JavaScript and all the rest of it, of that, or if you want to become you want to do work as an accountant and do your relevant qualifications. It's important to continue on that learning journey and be proactive in it, because yes, it's possible to get those roles without those qualifications, but like we said earlier, the job market's competitive. You need to make yourself stand out, and by standing out, you need to be proactive and demonstrate consistency even through the bad days. That means, even if you got to go on the website of Barclays, Lloyds, Halifax, HSBC, NatWest, do what you got to do to, on the good, the bad days, always look at opportunities for entry level positions. Even if you're an adult, as long as it financially suffices you, look at opportunities that you can do shadowing through. Utilize LinkedIn. LinkedIn is powerful. It's your shop window to the job market as well.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of great advice for the people, and I'm sure this would be of great value. So, yeah, I guess lastly, what's next for you? What's next for me
is, well, 2024 has been a great year. I've been fortunate enough to get nominated for some of the great work that's happened, and thank God I've been really fortunate enough to win some really highly esteemed awards which I'm extremely grateful for. Touchwood 2025, I want to take the bar even higher. I want to do a lot of work with our diversity, equity, and inclusion teams here at the bank to create more pathways and opportunities for young individuals, both for employment and entrepreneurship, the two key focused areas. I want to create new pathways around socioeconomic inclusion as well, making sure that regardless of where you are in the UK, whether you're an inner city London child or you live on the periphery or South End, or if you're all the way up in Glasgow, you have equal opportunity. And I want to basically create a lot more awareness of like the struggles that individuals that from migrant backgrounds like myself come from. I want to encourage like the firm I work for example, to support people with visa sponsorship, things of that nature that don't always get thought of when it comes to the whole DE&I agenda, because sometimes we lose a lot of good talent that way. Really, I want to be a force for good, and essentially, even though I'm still quite young myself, I want to start building up the future me and help somebody that's gonna come and carry on the work that I'm doing and support people in a similar stead, you know. And I want to get like continue to climb up that corporate ladder, but do it in the right way, finding the roles that are suited to me, and continue making change via platforms like this. So thank you for having me on this as well. I want to do a lot more of these kind of events and talks and give a lot more people within our age group and those beneath and even above us the opportunity to shine and really show that regardless of what your ethnicity is, regardless of what your socioeconomic status is, etc., that there's diamonds in the rough, you know, and you can really make a difference for yourself as long as you demonstrate that consistency.
100%, man, 100%. So yeah, thank you once again for coming on the show. It's been great. Big up the sirens that were going off.
Yeah, I know, right? When you work in a corporate, closing up for the day, the alarms have to get set.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, I'd love to obviously have you on again at some point in the future as well. So yeah, man.
100%.
But that was it was great speaking with you, and yeah, anybody that's watching, yeah, please, if you have any questions for him, drop them in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, keep watching out for more content. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Peace.